My game sucks. I wonder if he actually tweeted that out. Apparently, the creator of Stardew Valley, he thought that his game sucked. And I remember reading something similar in an article a long time ago. By the way, this guy right here is the inspiration for me making games as a solo game developer. I'm almost like he is in a sense where I try to do everything alone and I don't like getting help. Now that comes off as really odd because chat's helping me all the time, you know? But what I mean by that is that I set out things to do by myself and I try to finish them by myself. Give you a very simple example of like a real life situation. I'm moving from point A to B. I don't ask my friends. I don't ask my parents. The only thing I ask for is a vehicle where I can put my stuff in so I can move from A to B without having to drive like 10 times in between the two places. I don't ask anyone for help. I do it myself. A long time ago, I needed to build up my own kitchen. My dad helped me a little bit in the beginning, but then I did the rest myself. I just don't need, or building a cupboard that you buy off IKEA. You know, basically the entire baby room I made myself. I didn't really want or need any help. I work best alone. And he is, in a sense, the same way. He tried to make everything in his game by himself, and then apparently he was talking about how he didn't like his game. He didn't think the game was any fun, and currently I feel the same with my game. People come in here a lot, they tell me how they like my game and how it looks really good. You have a nice tutorial, we implemented that the other day, and then you can start, you know, and we made a really cool skeleton sound, impact sound today. It's not perfect, but it's much better than what we had before. And you know, obviously the game's not done, but I like constantly, I feel at the back of my head, the game's not good yet. It's not good enough. And so I wonder why the Stardew Valley creator hated his game. And I wonder what you could do about it.
This game sucks is exactly what went through Eric Baroni's head just a few days before releasing his game Stardew Valley. Eric had spent the last 4.5 years working on it day and night entirely by himself, and he hated it. But it would near instantly become one of the most successful.
You sure it's not clickbait? No, it's actually real. He thought about that. And there's articles that go into this. Yes, it is real. He thought that for sure. Yes.
Indie games of all time. So how
the clickbait comes in this form of it being a Twitter or X post where he says, my game sucks. That post has never been made. He fabricated that post, but that's essentially what he thought.
Did something its creator hated do so well? Let's find out. Now, making a game entirely by yourself is not easy. You need to know how to code, compose music, make art, and so much more.
Sound effects.
So, where did Eric learn all of these skills? Eric's first source of inspiration was his parents. He describes his mom as a very artistic person, while his dad is a more logical, technical person. Eric was very interested in computers as a little kid, and his dad encouraged him to follow that interest. They had a computer.
My dad always told me to turn off the computer, man. He came into my room snooping around whether the computer was on or not. I literally had to put Plato on the little LED of the computer and then blast some music loudly so he doesn't hear the computer is on. Fuck, man.
With the MS-DOS.
My parents didn't understand, you know? They did not understand.
Operating system, and Eric would begin to mess around with the basic programming language at a young age. His dad said that he'd give Eric $5 if he could code a program that generates the Fibonacci sequence.
That is a giga dad. That's what I need to do too with my daughter. I recently had a daughter. I will, yeah, smart, very good idea. Cool.
A task often given to
like they can get their own pocket money and learn at the same time. That's so, oh my god,
programmers.
Genius.
He tried to fool him by just
make her do it in assembly. $10 if she does it in assembly. True.
Printing out the sequence using a string, which is essentially just writing the sequence manually rather than having the computer do the math. So needless to say, Eric did not end the day with $5 in his pocket.
Yikes.
But he didn't give up and would continue to learn programming in his free time. When Eric entered high school, he got really into music, likely thanks to his mom's artistic side. He played guitar, made music on his computer, was in a metal band, and later formed found an experimental electronic pop band called 17 Colorful Feathers.
What the fuck is this?
When they released
Goodness, that is yikes. That's cringe, yeah. Look at that's him, I think. Funny, cool. Whoop, I'm into it. I mean, more power to you, bro. Crazy.
An album online, Eric wanted to include a game with it and made this, the official 17 Colorful Feathers adventure game. If you get stuck, the game's instructions tell you to message them on MySpace, which, well, just make sure you don't get stuck. In an interview with Eric, he thinks that this game is pretty embarrassing now, but for a random game made by a teenager for his band, I think it's pretty cool. Eric would soon get a job at Auntie Anne's, the pretzel place, and would draw stuff whenever things were slow. Once he graduated from high school, he enrolled in...
That's so smart. I tell this like so many people, like do the stuff that you like doing wherever you can. That's what I did too. Whenever you have the time and whenever you can, just do the stuff that you're interested in. And further that, you know, if you're interested into drawing, don't be ashamed, just do it. Like there's so many people that I see that they start out with drawing, especially kids, and then they get to a certain age where it's not cool anymore and they completely stop. That's dumb. Don't be dumb. Just keep doing it. Because you're the one that's interesting and the other ones are just generic. You don't want to be generic.
A local community college and took his first actual programming.
And the reason why I know that is because I did the same thing. I was big into drawing and then I just stopped.
Class,
because
which
it wasn't
he
cool
really
anymore.
Enjoyed. Because of this, he decided that he would go to school for computer science at the University of Washington, Tacoma. Eric was still working at Auntie Anne's.
Yeah, and that's where you learn nothing. I went to university too, and I literally learned nothing. All the stuff that I know now, I know because I trained it myself, self-taught. Unfortunately, that's how it is. The universities don't really teach practical stuff unless it is a very practical oriented university, which you can get into. These are much better.
Based on this video he posted at the time, you could tell he was having a great time.
Oh, yeah.
I can't play the music for copyright reasons, but it's that celebrate song. I'm almost certain you've all heard it, so I...
Boring video, go next. You're banned. Okay, let's move on.
Won't sing anymore. But Eric would soon become very thankful that he still worked there, as he would soon meet Amber Hageman, a newly hired co-worker at Auntie Anne's. Amber was drawn to Eric's creativity, and they soon began dating.
It's actually
one of their
funny.
common interests.
Like, funny story, I was working at a grocery store too, you know, with a bunch of other students. You meet a lot of people there, and you can find your girlfriend there too, you know. Just saying. I met a lot of people there too.
Is that they both love the Harvest Moon video game franchise, all of which are life simulation games where you inherit a small farm, clean it up, watch it grow, make friends with the nearby town citizens, go fishing, participate in festivals, and really just live the lifestyle of a rural farm owner. Eric and Amber would spend date nights playing Harvest Moon Back to Nature, passing the controller back and forth. Around the time Eric graduated from college, things were getting pretty serious between the two, and they moved in together to Eric's parents' house until they could afford to move out. With his brand new computer science degree, Eric began applying for jobs, but
you don't get anything because you don't have any experience, because they don't teach you anything. It's a waste of time, but you still need it, oftentimes. It's...
wasn't having much luck. During interviews, he was always awkward and nervous and just really didn't do well.
Like, of course you're nervous because you don't have any experience. I remember the first interview I got to. I was so nervous because I didn't know anything. And so what did I say? I know nothing. That was my game plan. I tell them I know nothing, but I want to learn. It actually worked, but yeah, so bad.
Something I and many of you watching can probably relate to all too well. Most job positions Eric could apply for were now filling up, and he began thinking of ways he could improve his quickly shrinking odds. He decided that he wanted to try making a video game.
Smart.
He soon decided on making his own version of Harvest Moon.
Really smart.
Eric, like many other fans, had searched for years for a game that captured the magic of the early Harvest Moon games. but nothing existed. For a while, he even roleplayed on Harvestcraft, a fan-made Harvest Moon-themed Minecraft server, until activity fizzled out. The Harvest Moon series had fallen out of favor by most fans with the last few releases, due to a copyright dispute that would double the video's length if I tried to explain it, as well as a steep decline in quality. Like, look at this.
This is why I got into games too. So, how is it possible to make the game look more shitty than the original game? Look at those colors, man. It's an embarrassment. That's a school project, essentially. You know, that's the same thing that happens with Pokemon. This right here. And this is why Pal World happened. It's the same thing. It's funny how that works, right? Because these people get lazy. The incentive becomes money and not the game anymore.
What even is this? Why does this character not match any of the other graphics in the game? And the water in this river is flowing sideways? Unironically, Farmville looks better than this. Eric told Amber that his game would take him about 6 months, so he'd have a cool project on his resume once.
Oh my god, I remember these 6 months from somewhere. Oh my god, when I started, I said the same thing. Only the original viewers know this, but I told my wife the exact same thing, man. And she would actually, at worst times, she would call me a liar because I told her that I told her in the beginning that it would take me 6 months to develop my game. Oh my god, I was so confident, you know? Yeah, because you're over projecting, you're overconfident in the beginning because you make so much progress. You think that, damn, everything just works. I can already move. I can already harvest. In my case, it was, oh man, I can already move around. I can already place towers. The towers can attack each other. Dude, I'm basically done. The game's over. Just some art, upgrades, and let's move on, bro. Next game. Easy. Oh, is that Dunning-Kruger? People like using that?
Oh, yeah. The next round of hiring started up. As you now know, his estimate wasn't even close. Over the next few months, Eric would wake up, make a cup of coffee, head over to his computer, and spend the rest of the day and night working on his game, which he would call Sprout Valley. Although, not for long, as he'd rebrand it to Stardew Valley soon after. Now, all developers also need a cool alias to go by, like how Marcus Persson, the creator of Minecraft, goes by Notch. Fans of Stardew Valley may know that Eric decided on Concerned Ape, but it wasn't his first choice. Originally, he was gonna go by the name, and I'm not joking, 3 Piping Hot Mouse.
That's a bad name, but yeah, I guess he learned.
And before you ask, no, he never explained why. Eric took a pretty unique approach when it came to developing Stardew Valley. Most indie developers these days start with an engine built for making games, like Unity, GameMaker, or Godot.
Yeah, these are the noobs, the weak guys. The gigachats make their own engine. But they also never finished the game, so they keep making your games in engines, guys. Keep making them in your engines, okay?
But Eric
you will be faster.
Truly wanted to build this game from the ground up. Using his knowledge of the Java programming language from college, he taught himself C#, which he would code the game's engine in with the help of Microsoft's XNA framework. XNA isn't a game engine, but more of a set of tools to help develop.
A framework is basically, it gives you tools to draw graphics, to make sounds, to get input, stuff like that. That's what a framework is. You still have to manage everything yourself, like loading the sounds and then playing the sounds. But essentially, that's what a framework does for you. It gives you these functions and then you can use these functions.
Developers make Windows and Xbox games. It is much harder than using an actual engine. In order to create pixel art, he began reading about pixel art theory and watched dozens of hours of YouTube tutorials.
Yep.
He would then make every...
If you guys want a really cool resource for pixel art, I have one for you. Blog studiominiboss.com/pixelart. This is, in my opinion, the best resource online to get into pixel art. And why do I say that? Because it goes into a lot of detail on how to draw certain things. It explains them very well. And you can download these as GIF, however you want to call them, files. And then you can go frame by frame in, let's say, a program like Sprite. I saved some of them myself here. And then you can basically drag and drop these in Sprite. And then what you can do is you can put it to the right here. Boom. And then on the left you draw, and on the right you can alternate the frames. See that? You alternate the frames, you read up what he says, and then on the left you draw whatever you want to draw.
Piece of art in the game by hand in a program called paint.net, which I actually use for most, if not all, of the thumbnails on my RuneScape channel. There's my shameless self-promotion for this video. As you might have guessed, Eric also composed every piece of music in the game in a program called Reason. With every aspect of the game as his skills improved, he would go back and redo things. The portraits of the game's townsfolk, for example, were redesigned at least 10 times during development. He'd lose.
See what people don't go into? Like, they go into how he redesigned the art, right? He probably had to redesign the codes 10 times too. For those people in chat that keep complaining how I, work on the same thing multiple times. Just saying.
He'd lose entire days just fixing things he had made weeks ago. Eric would also jump around quite a bit when it came to coding the game. He'd build about 90% of a feature, get bored, and switch to something else.
Smart.
Some days he was extremely productive.
Really smart. See, this is the important part. Oh my god, thank goodness he goes into this. Thank you. That is so important. Because have you guys ever heard someone tell you how they work 16 hours a day every day? They sleep 5 hours and then they work 16 hours a day. Have you guys heard that? That's just not how it works. You will get ill and break down before you can finish anything. If you keep doing that for a long time, you will get severely in trouble. Your body will just break down. You can't do that. It's impossible. We humans don't operate like that. We are not machines. Listen to what he says now. It's really important. It's really important for your own mental health too. Don't get sucked into this. There's so many gurus online that talk about how they work 16 hours a day and that's how they got rich, and that's how if you want to be rich and famous, then you have to do that too. It's not true. Funny thing, I actually started streaming less, but I did much better. I used to work 16 hours a day when I began programming, and there are days when I work 16 hours a day, 22 hours a day, but there's also days where I sleep 12 hours a day.
A feature, get bored, and switch to something else.
Very important.
Some days he was extremely productive, while others he got nothing done. He'd sometimes waste days on 8-hour sessions of Civilization,
This is so important. You know what you read online? Concerned Ape worked 70-hour weeks. And this is what people take away from that. And then they wonder when they do the same thing, how they quit midway through the project. Well, it's because you can't do that for a long time. It's impossible. If you spend a day to relax, or 2 days to relax, to get your mind in the right order, to enjoy life, to visit friends, to do whatever you like doing, this is the best way to continue working on your game. You are more relaxed, you have more energy to go forward. And it's so important, and unfortunately, every single person on the internet pushes the same bullshit agenda that you have to work all day, every day, sleep 5 hours a day. I have seen it multiple times. It's not how it works, man. They're lying to you. It's not real.
Just browsing Reddit. When Amber got home, he'd switch programs to make it seem like he hadn't just spent all day slacking off. But when he got...
I do the same thing, man. I'm in the dining room. I'll show you. I'm in the dining room, the door is right there. And when my wife comes in, I look over, and I switch from watching a YouTube video to and then I switch back. I do that too, man. Oh, that's so
idea in his head of a feature he
that was voice meter fucking up. Sorry about that. Oh goodness.
Wanted to add to the game. He'd work non-stop until he was happy with it. It wasn't the most efficient way to make a game by any means, but it worked for him. Now, Eric's schedule didn't change much, if at all, every day. Since he was living rent-free with his parents, he didn't have to worry about money. And
interesting. I heard how he was. Didn't he just say that they moved out to their own apartment?
by now had given up the job search entirely. The fear of not finding a job was no longer the reason motivating him to make this game. Instead, it was a different kind of fear. He said, "I was afraid of the grind. I was afraid of sitting in a cubicle and programming something I thought really boring, and I wasn't passionate about.
I was afraid of doing this in my entire life for someone that doesn't care about me, doesn't share my visions, and doesn't share my enthusiasm for programming or making games, where they only care about getting some work done that someone else wants them to do." Yes, I hated that sentiment.
I wanted something different, and I wanted the freedom to do whatever I wanted.
Yes,
Eric
ultimate
wanted to make
freedom.
this work
It's
no matter
really
the
cool.
cost.
Yes.
But living as a couple at your parents' house isn't ideal. And Eric and Amber soon wanted to move out together, but you need money in order to do that.
That's
something
difficult.
that the couple didn't have.
Yep.
So Amber decided to get a job as a caretaker that she would do on weekdays after school, and also got a second job working as a barista on weekends.
Aye.
Meanwhile, Eric would continue just working on the game.
See, like, this is where problems can set in, I'm telling you. Your wife or girlfriend is working and you bring in, you're working too, but she brings in 90% of the money and you 10. And then she's like, is the game done yet? You done yet? Like, are we gonna expect money soon? It is stressful. Yeah.
In their apartment. Now, to most people, this
True.
arrangement sounds completely unfair and maybe even unrealistic. But Amber didn't seem to mind. She said, "When we were living at home, it wasn't as hard. And then when we moved out to Seattle, the reality of having to support him became more real. But it really wasn't a problem ever. He was working so much that it was impossible to be frustrated." Eric would also pitch in other ways, like picking up the groceries.
That's true. So, like, my wife is incredibly supportive because I work so hard. Now, you guys only see me on stream, but I do a lot of shit off stream. I basically work the entire time. Now, I do take breaks, you know. I do, like, relax. But yes, she's incredibly supportive. It's insane. Like, and I don't think anyone would be that supportive. Like, it's very rare to have someone by your side that does that.
And driving Amber to college in his beat-up old Toyota Camry with a broken driver's side door. That may seem insignificant, but remember this car for later. In mid-2012, he felt as if he had done enough work to finally be able to show Stardew Valley to the public, and opened a website to document the game's progress.
We checked that website.
He shared
It was
it
cool.
on a Harvest Moon fan forum, and many people there were instantly drawn to Eric's game. As I mentioned earlier, most of them had fallen out of love with the new Harvest Moon releases, and Stardew Valley looked really promising. As Eric continued working, Stardew Valley would become all-consuming. 8-hour days of work turned to 10, and then 12. With an audience watching now, Eric didn't want to disappoint. Eric's
That's
family
awesome.
and girlfriend would begin asking him when the game would be done. He'd say in 2 months. 2 months would pass, they'd ask again, and his answer would be the same. Eric said, "I had to prove that I wasn't just crazy, that this wasn't just a pipe dream, and that I was actually gonna follow through on it." That was really getting to me, psychologically, thinking about whether I was wasting my life, wasting my time. So part of my strategy was to convince the people around me that they should believe in me. But that was difficult. I was definitely embarrassed. Eric's duties as
So, like, I just don't talk about my game, that's why. Like, people ask me the same questions, and I just don't want to talk about it. I just want to show them when it's done. Like, I believe, like, I'm pretty sure that this will finish and I will make the game. Like, this is just, I've gone through so much shit. Like, at this point, it's a given. And people believe me, but I just don't talk about it. I don't like talking about it. Because I'm a person, the type of person that just likes to do things instead of talk about doing things.
the partner took the back seat, and Amber began to feel quite lonely. She was fully supporting someone who she barely interacted with every day.
Oh,
She
yeah,
said
that's
that he would
natural.
be working all day till 11:30 p.m., and I would be like, hey, you have to get off the computer. You have to do something with me. We have to eat dinner. We have to watch an episode of Star Trek. I needed more interaction with him. Although she was frustrated and missed spending time with him, she still believed in Eric's vision. In September of 2012, Eric thought thought that the game was nearly done. He felt that if he needed to, he could wrap it up in about 6 months. So he submitted Stardew Valley to Steam Greenlight, a program where indie developers could submit their games to Steam. Steam users could then browse.
Thank God we don't have to go through this anymore.
Submissions,
done, yeah.
vote on the ones they liked, and those with the most positive votes would be listed on the Steam store. Soon after posting it to Greenlight, Eric received an interesting email from someone named Finn Bryce. Finn is a British game developer who runs a company called Chucklefish.
I wonder how they
Finn
turned
made
apart.
Eric an offer. For 10% of the game's profits, Chucklefish would be Stardew Valley's publisher. Their lawyers and PR staff would help Eric navigate the boring and complicated parts of making a game. Programmers would help him set up a better website, and later on, port the game to other consoles. This way, he could focus all his energy on actually making the game itself. Chucklefish was also developing a game called Starbound.
So I wonder why they broke apart. I wonder if he goes into this.
Which at the time had a huge amount of hype. Eric thought that this could be his big break, and for such a small cut, he agreed. On May 17th, 2013, Stardew Valley was officially greenlit by the community. The game would be coming to Steam. However, Eric's estimation of the game being ready in 6 months was once again wrong. He still had a lot more to do before he was satisfied.
Yeah.
Even worse, money was becoming tight. By now, most of their savings were gone, and Amber was still in college, so she could only work part-time. Eric thought about putting the game on Steam Early Access, meaning players could buy and play the game before it was finished, but for a perfectionist like Eric, that just wasn't an option. So he got a part-time job as an usher.
I'm telling you from experience, I had to go through the same bullshit. Not bullshit, but I had to go through the same thing to support my now baby. It feels bad. It feels like you feel like a failure to have to get a job because you didn't manage to make the game in time and therefore earn enough money to support you or your wife and your family with enough money so you can stay in your home and buy food. You feel like a failure. It sucks, I'm telling you. So I'm pretty sure he felt that too.
At a nearby theater for a few hours a week.
But you need to do it.
Making a game by yourself in your apartment for years is a really isolating experience. So Eric enjoyed being around and interacting with people again, even if he did feel a little embarrassed. He said, "There were points when I was depressed and just thinking, what am I doing? I have a degree in computer science and I'm working a minimum wage job as an usher at the theater. People would ask me, do you do anything else? And I said, I'm making a video game. I just felt embarrassed about it. They must have thought, oh, this guy is
I feel the same thing.
a loser."
Until you release it.
Around this time, he would get really anxious. More and more people were getting excited about Stardew Valley, but Eric thought to himself, I realized that it was crap, and I needed to do something better. Like, this wasn't going to be a big hit or anything. He went back to the vicious cycle of redoing old content, cutting features, and trying to improve the game the best he could, but he still wasn't happy with it. At the start of 2014, he realized something. Since starting work on Stardew Valley, he had never allowed himself to take a break. So he decided that for the next month, he would ignore Stardew Valley entirely and make a little Android game.
Really smart.
On March 6, 2014, he released Air Pair, an endless runner type game focused on a hoverboarding pair. The game didn't do well. In fact, it's no longer on the Google Play Store, and the experience made Eric realize that he doesn't want to make mobile games. But it was a nice change of pace for a while. He got back to work on Stardew Valley, and by 2015, once again, felt like the game was nearly done. But anxieties and dread began to creep back in. Eric had become sick of working on the game. It had basically consumed his entire life for the last 4 years. And
fuck, man, I'm 2 years, almost 3 years in. 2 years in like 8 or 9 months. And I can only imagine what it is like in like another 2 years.
He still had nothing to show for it. Even worse, he still thought the game was terrible. Imagine playing the same game every day for 4.5 years, all day. I was just absolutely sick of it. I was bored. I didn't even have an objective sense on if the game was good or not. In fact, I thought it was bad. Now, on the bright side, money problems were now easing up. As Amber had since graduated from college and began work as a full-time lab technician. They also moved into a house with 2 friends to get some more space and help ease Eric's loneliness. By late 2015, the game was truly nearly done, except for one feature. multiplayer. Eric had promised fans that multiplayer would be available by the time the game released, but it was taking much longer to code than he hoped. It was boring, monotonous.
I think he made a smart decision not adding in multiplayer to the game, then add it in later. Give himself more time.
Work, and Eric hated it. So he decided to break his promise. It was time to give the people what they really wanted. On January 29th, 2016, Eric made an announcement. Stardew Valley would be out next month on February 26th and would only cost $15.
Damn, that's
He was
cheap.
actually in the home stretch now. He spent the next month completely enveloped in his work, day and night, fixing bugs, adding new content, and just rushing to get things done. Chucklefish was able to help him through this last leg too. They sent early game codes to journalists and Twitch streamers, who would not only drum up hype for the game, but discover more bugs for Eric to patch. A process that he was previously doing all by himself. Despite only 3 streamers being given codes, the game quickly became one of the top games on Twitch and would frequently appear on the home page. But with all this work, he didn't sleep for days. Then, the evening before the game's launch, disaster struck. He had encountered a game-breaking bug. Eric doesn't remember what it was anymore, but it was bad enough to send him into a panic. He spent all night fixing it and fell asleep at his homemade standing desk early in the morning. Soon after he woke up from his nap, it was time to release the game. Eric, Amber, and their roommates gathered around the computer and waited for Eric to publish the game. He still had that thought in the back of his head that the game was crap, but luckily, he was wrong. The sales rolled in at an insane pace. It was an instant success. Eric was hoping to sell maybe 10 or 20,000 copies at the most, but by the end of the first 2 weeks, he had sold 500,000, and dozens of perfect and near-perfect reviews from major publications were pouring in. Despite all his doubts and anxieties telling him otherwise, Eric had created one of the best games of all time.
Yep. It's very, very cool,
but
man.
Eric still wasn't done. As sales continued to rise, he would spend the next few weeks fixing every bug that popped up. If a bug was so bad that it broke a player's save file, he would personally fix it for them. Seeing players have issue with the game really affected him, and he felt like he owed them solutions as soon as possible.
You know what this basically turned into? He continually worked on the game. Take a look at the SteamDB. This is what happened to Stardew Valley. It started out as a huge success, right? But look what happened over time. It only grew because he kept releasing new patches to the game. See that? Like how it started with like at most 64,000 players. And then recently it hit a peak of 236,000. Like you can't see it. But essentially, this is what happened. He kept working on the game, even 10 years later. Fuck yo, extension error. It's crazy. Insane numbers, and it's on loads on other platforms with loads of players.
He was now working about 15 hours a day, much more than before the game launched, but really it was all worth it. By April, sales hit 1 million, but then Eric broke. About halfway through 2016, Eric just couldn't do it anymore. After nearly 5 years of non-stop work, he needed a big break.
Yeah, this is just what happens, man. You just work yourself so much that you get ill. You burn out, yeah. You have to take a break at some point. You have to balance this. Burnout is real. It happens. And everyone will go through this. Even him being that successful, usually burnout happens when you don't make progress. He made a lot of progress. He had a very successful game. Even he burnt out because it just... We are not programmed to just work. We are programmed to work and relax. It's a balance. Turtle Hermit.
Dragon Ball Z, guys. Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball.
Work hard, eat and sleep plenty. That's the Turtle Hermit way of doing things. That's how it works. It's true.
He had started on the multiplayer mode, but it was beyond monotonous. So for the first time ever, he got help. Chucklefish offered to task one of its programmers with making the multiplayer mode, and Eric accepted. After a long break full of alcohol, a plant that you can't grow in Stardew Valley, and ashwagandha, he got back to work creating new content and expansions for the game. Fast forwarding a bit, Stardew Valley has since sold over 30 million copies and has been ported to any gaming platform you can think of. Damn. Eric is now a millionaire multiple times over, but hasn't let the the money change him. 6 months after the game's launch, with $12 million in his bank account, he still chose to live in that house with Amber and his two friends rather than buying his...
See, this is what smart people do. Like, others would just spend the money. He's smart.
Oh.
Maybe buy a house and get like free electricity on top. That's what I would do. But otherwise, I would just save it. Smart.
And he drove his beat-up old Toyota Camry with a broken door until it finally gave out. He kept it as long as he could, but the final straw was water leaking into the cabin, causing fungus to grow all over the steering wheel, which honestly just sounds like a scenario straight out of the world of Stardew Valley. Speaking of which, he hasn't forgotten about his game. Stardew Valley is still receiving massive amounts of new free content every year, and Eric makes frequent appearances on the game's subreddit. He since parted ways with Chucklefish as well due to a number of controversies coming out of the studio, but has thankfully hired his own team to help him expand and maintain Stardew Valley.
I think that's the smart idea. Once you have money, you can invest into other people. You can hire people, maybe that you met along the way or that you meet by chance. That's smart. That's really smart. Yeah.
Got to meet the creator of Harvest Moon, Yasuhiro Wada. Wada played Stardew Valley for the first time, gave it a ton of praise, and even signed Eric's old SNES copy of the original Harvest Moon.
The best thing to do,
Eric has since started work on another game called Haunted Chocolatier, although he's keeping the details about the game mostly under wraps, but he's making it the same way he made Stardew Valley, alone.
It looks so good, man.
Just because he's doing it alone doesn't mean he's lonely, as Amber is still with him by his side to this day. Eric's story is an inspiration to everyone out there that with enough persistence, you can truly accomplish whatever you want in life, but also a warning that if you let it, it can be all-consuming to the detriment of yourself and especially those around you.
Yep. Very good video. I love the fact that he went into how he wasted his time in video games for 8 hours straight. I love that. This is the one thing that people need to hear more. I'm not advocating that you should be lazy, but I'm advocating that there's no way you're gonna work 16 hours a day for 5 to 6 years and think that is gonna work. There's no way. You can't do that. It's impossible. You're gonna break way before you even hit like the first year. That's just not how it works. But otherwise, really good video. I love that video. It's really nice. I love that he went into these specifics, and it humanizes a person a little bit more and turns them from a machine into a real, relatable human being. Awesome.